Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of Smart Outsourcing Talks. And today we are going to talk about a very talked about topic, I would say, that is a CAS. And the title is Why the Best CAS Practices Think Like a Product Companies. So that's what today's topic is all about. For the past couple of years, everybody is just talking about cash, right? And everybody wants to integrate, cash into their practice, whether they are doing accounting or tax practice. It becomes the growth strategy for accounting firms, the services everyone trying to build, and the future everyone is investing in the cash. Okay, so why so many cash practices still struggle to scale? And I have been talking to a lot of these accounting firms, and they all keep talking about cash, but when I ask that what is the kind of a revenue share they have from the cash, it is negligible. So I was wondering why this cash practices do not scale. Is it talent, is it technology, is it demand, or what is it all about? So in many firms, treating cash as a services and not as a product. And I've been speaking to a lot of people. So very few firms are running cash as a product as opposed to services. Um, and the firms pulling ahead today don't start by asking what services we can offer. Okay, they start by asking who we are building this for. Okay, or what problems are we going to solve, and how do we deliver it consistently every single time. And that shift changes everything from pricing and positioning to hiring to delivery and growth. And today's conversation is about accounting firms can learn from the product companies. And today's guest we have has spent her career helping firms answer one of the hardest question in the accounting, not just how to grow, but how to grow with intention. So, Mary, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Maanoj. I'm really glad to be here and to be talking about this conversation. You know, I say all the time, whether you're an independent firm or a firm that's taken, if you're a firm that's taken investment or private equity, you're going to be asked for growth in this area, right? The CAS area, whatever that,
Yeah.
whatever it entails. It's always, it's also interesting, those three letters CAS. In the last week, I've heard it called business advisory, advisory services, um, accounting and advisory services, right? Like what is your CAS practice entail? I always have to research that on every
Mm,
firm, really dig into what they're doing for
mm,
their clients.
yeah. So, Mary, before we go ahead, let me just introduce you to our audience. So Mary Ardath is managing director at Whitman Advisory, where she works alongside the accounting firm leaders on the growth strategy, on client advisory services, on succession planning, leadership development, and mainly long term firm transformation. So her work isn't about helping firms add just another service, it's about helping them build businesses that are scalable, differentiated, and built for future. Over the past year, she has become a leading voice in conversations around the cash strategy, firm positioning, leadership alignment, and practice management. Whether she is speaking with the firm owners or leading industry discussions or helping firms rethink the way they grow, one theme consistently comes through is the successful firm don't scale by doing more. They scale by being intentional about what they build and who they build it for. And that's exactly why today's conversation matters, because if accounting firms want to build cash practices that are profitable, repeatable, and truly scalable, they need to stop thinking like a service providers and start thinking like a product companies. So, Mary, it is great to have you here, and let's get started with, you know, when we look at all the firms, why do you believe that firms should think cash like a product rather than a service? And I'm sure we just picked this up because you keep speaking about how the CAS needs to be positioned to their clients.
Right, right. So, and my background wasn't always in public accounting. So, prior to working in public accounting, I worked with the Art Institute colleges. I worked with Becker Professional Education, where we were always driven around product, right? Like what the product looks like. And when you look at service industries or professional services like accounting firms, they are so compliance driven, right? So if you have a client, they need to get their taxes done, they need to get their audit done, right? But now we have this opportunity to be so much more for that client. We could do their bookkeeping, we could do their payroll, so many other services that you can add in. And so I think when we go to firms and push for growth in advisory, before thinking about what are we packaging up, what are we putting together as a group, and then saying that we can deliver to our client, and what does that pricing look like? All of these things are very different than billing hourly and billing for time spent on that specific thing, right? Getting your taxes done. Now we're looking at becoming, so many people use the two words trusted advisor. That means a lot of things, but it's really important to look at what are we going to put together from the firm, from either, that specific department we're building, or are we pulling outside of that department, and then understanding what we can deliver, right?
Okay. So, Mary, many firms say that they have a CAS practice, but very few have clearly defined their offerings. Okay. So, how much the role of packaging is there in terms of positioning the CAS services?
I think that's 110% of the role of it, right? Is to actually understand what you're going to deliver to the clients, the pricing that you're going to go in at, and the offerings that you have are really important. It's important to look at the clients you have, right? So do you have a niche group of clients that are in a specific area? Are they in a lot of different areas? Does that product look different for different clients? So if you have manufacturing, and then you also do something in, recently I've met with many firms in the Twin Cities that work with breweries, right? So understanding who your client is and making sure that you're building packages and things that will best serve them.
And so when the firms are thinking about introducing CAS, as a as in services, so what are the things that should they keep in mind? What is the kind of a vision, or what is the kind of a planning they need to do before even they think of this, introducing it? I am asking because I see a lot of firms are talking about CAS, but very few are able to kind of implement the way they should implement it.
Yeah, I think one of the key things to think about as you build any team out, right, is what that team structure looks like. This department, CAS, people working in that area have to be able to have advisory level conversations, and be able to work with clients differently than someone who may be doing compliance-based work. So it's really important to look at the leadership bench you have from within your firm, and then determine, I know that you work in outsourcing, right? Are there roles at your firm that you can staff differently? So can you have someone doing the tax preparation so that you can, I really believe in upskill the people that you have at your firm. Look at taking them to those advisory level conversations. Maybe their role isn't doing the work anymore, and you figure out how that works. You have to really also identify early on who those leaders are in your firm, right? To me, that should start with, if we know CAS is where the growth is at, our recruiters identifying those college students that have those skills early on, right? And letting people know. And then, are you doing leadership and training and development for people in the firm? I think, early in public accounting firms, you spend time with people after they've spent a few years, they've done their dues, they've worked in the tax department or whatever area they've been in, and now they might be able to finally talk to a client. That we need to change our thinking about that, and we need to think about having them in those client conversations right away if we're going to track them into that advisory areas, so that they bring value, right? That advisor is what's bringing the value to that client, and making sure that they have the skills to do that.
And what comes first, so whether it is people or processes or technology or designing the CAS, so how do firms go about doing that?
I'm always going to lead with people. You have to, that to me is so key in your strategy. You can think about your product and all the things you have, but in mine, everybody has a little bit different maybe way of thinking it. But for me, it's the people, because that's the beginning of the build out. Who do we have here right now who can do the things that we need them to do? And you really got to think about the people. Is it the tax manager who's already pressed in his area right now that wants to take on this other product, this other whole line? Or do we find someone right away and put them in a role where they're managing that group? Does that come later down in a year, maybe when the group is built out more? Do we have a timeline for the people? Because when you see things fail, and I'm sure this is the same for you in outsourcing, a lot of it ties back to who are the people leading the charge or managing the people and putting things together. Who is responsible for that growth? And so I think people are so key to it.
Yeah, absolutely. But when you put a people first, okay, how do you ensure that they kind of deliver the value, okay, each time? Because again, most of the times I've seen that people dependent business, the services can go up and down. So how do you really control that?
I think the first thing is making sure that you have a true dedicated CAS department, right? And so as you go out and get clients, when you get CAS clients, really, they're a monthly client. A regular finance is coming into the firm, right? So it's key to keep them once you have them on board. And I think you talk to them more frequently than other clients. You should be meeting with them monthly, and going over the deliverables that you're doing and what you're bringing into that firm. But a key for that for me is really identifying the roles at the firm, right? Who is the account? Who's managing the account? Because there's multiple people on that type of a client. You're going to have different people. You're going to have to rely upon your tax department to get things put together for you when you have deliverables to do. But making sure that those people feel confident in that, and delivering the value. That's interesting. Even as a consultant, when we say we come in and we help firms grow, where does that prove out? To me, that really is in you looking at what was the perceived goal, right? So building the goal together. And I think that comes as advisory, right? It's working with the client to say, let's have goals. It's more than reporting out of the rear view mirror of your car, right? It's looking forward for them as well. So those are the deliverables. I think when you're working with your clients, they'll let you know if you're not doing what you need to do.
And Mary, in your experience, so say for example, if there is a tax firm and then they want to enter into a CAS market, okay. Now tax business is very different from the CAS, because tax is like once in a year. I mean, you meet the clients like once in a year, whereas in CAS you need to be, if it's your monthly client, then you need to kind of deliver month on month. So what is the change in practice, change in the processes or way of doing things or training people? How do you make this shift actually?
Yeah, well, I think it's training the people that you're bringing into that department, right? That they understand that there's monthly deliverables and that we're working with these clients more frequently. And then truthfully, I will lean
mm,
now here on technology, right? Like, let's move into technology. Do you have a practice management system? Do you have things in place that are allowing you
mm,
to have visibility into that client so that when you're going in there and working
mm,
with them and delivering them information, that it's consistent? And then I think you build up a cadence with your firm, right? What do you want your CAS
mm,
clients to know
mm,
monthly, and what are you
mm,
expecting to get from them monthly? And those are things that you want to build out those processes, right? You've got the people in place. Now you want to have the right processes that you're consistently delivering to those clients what they want. And you can't check out. You
mm,
can't. There is no. You can't say to a CAS client, "Sorry, I didn't get that to you. We were in our busy season." Or I've heard somebody say recently, our opportunity season. I thought I would start using that, but that is it. You have to be accountable, right? Opportunity instead of busy season, but you've got to be accountable to that client.
yeah.
And things that you can do really are those. Technology really plays in there, right? You can look at those reports, make sure that people in the departments are taking care of those clients.
Mm, yeah. And coming to the next chapter of it is, how do you define the market and value proposition? Because we have seen one of the challenge with the cash practices that firm, when they begin, they try to offer everything to everyone. Whoever comes is like welcome, right? And then they struggle to provide the key value to them, and then they go through that loop of confusion as to who we are, and how do we deliver to the value. So how should firms identify the right client profile for their cash offerings? Uh, and if you can give some examples of how people define their customer or maybe their target audience.
Yeah, so I think one of the first things that a firm needs to do if they're adding CAS, they need to look at their current clients and determine who of their current
Hmm.
clients would be in their ideal client profile, right? Like, so now they're looking for their
Okay.
ideal client list. And a
Hmm.
lot of that will tie back to how
Hmm.
much services a client wants based on their revenue, right? Like, are they big enough? Do we want to look at
Hmm.
clients that are $2
Hmm.
million and plus, that we know that a client at that level will want to pay for
Hmm.
additional services? And then to your point,
Hmm.
it's so key that you do not pick up work that, and I can use some examples of firms that I work with that do it successfully, right? So if you have a business development, you'll see this is
Hmm.
where accounting firms are hiring business development people now, right? They're going to go out and they're going to get new clients in this
Hmm.
advisory services. So I think a key of it is
Hmm.
that understanding, having the person who's managing the CAS practice, looking at the client opportunities they bring to
Hmm.
them, and having that listed out. What's our ideal
Hmm.
client profile? Who will we work with? What can we not do right in that area?
Hmm.
Sometimes it means buying software, investing in other areas to bring on a client in an area that, if you don't work in salons or in a certain area, it may mean that you've got to find experts in that area that can help more, as well.
Hmm.
So it's really important when you
Hmm.
look at that new client, not to just immediately say, yes, we can do the work. And I know that's hard, right? But to back up for a minute and then have somebody
Hmm.
take a look at scope of what we'll be doing, and how that makes sense. Great example
Hmm.
here. I work with a CAS team. They are all remote. And they recently had a partner
Hmm.
bring to them a client who does everything still paper. No systems to
Oh.
upload information, documents, forms. They're not taking that client.
Hmm.
They
Hmm.
are not an advisory team that goes on site. That's not, and to
Hmm.
even look at it and go, well, this could be a decent client for us. You have to
Hmm.
really outweigh what we have the availability to deliver right now. And then also
Hmm.
you can look at things too. If we don't have that availability, there are things you can look at. I think that's where you have a team of people, a few people that look at a client, because there are ways that you can also outsource that or work with a partner
Hmm.
group. There's a lot of
Hmm. Hmm.
opportunity to white label services in. So as the firm, you can still service your client, right?
Hmm.
And be that main point for them, but see if
Hmm.
somebody else can do the work. But that is
Hmm.
key, I think, when you are looking at the work, if you're taking things that you don't have the bandwidth to cover. And then I just think that the scope, some of the things you see, some advisory moves into CFO services, right? Do you want to have a CPA
Hmm.
doing CFO services? Those are they're
Yeah.
two different things, and even billing
Yeah.
looks very different for those two groups. So,
Hmm.
can you take the work? Yeah, but does it mean that you necessarily are doing that part of it? I think there are a lot of
Hmm.
ways that you can go around work, work on that as well as a firm.
Yeah, and like just to give you an example for ours, like we have a lot of these CFO services firm because they have figured out that okay, unless the books are cleaned, unless the books are managed well, they can't start their advisory. So a lot of them they come to us for their cleanup, catch up, and then kind of say, hey, can you do a professional accounting for us? So then we can kind of do an advisory. So yeah, you are right. Both skills are very different. So accounting and
Yeah,
CFO services. So yeah, it's
yeah.
difficult to
Well,
put under the one basket because the type of resources are very different.
yeah, yeah. And years ago, I think it was with the AICPA had done a survey to clients of accounting firms, right? And they
Hmm.
praise right in the survey, right, about the tax information and all the things that they're getting from
Hmm.
their accounting firm. But then the question always is why didn't you let me know I was in so much trouble?
Hmm.
Maybe on the financials or the other things going on, but that's not what a CPA is looking into for you. They're taking your information and it's different things,
Yeah.
right? So I can see that
Hmm.
probably very much. I see where, too, that you have to bring people in to do the cleanup and get them ready to be somebody that's moving into that growth moment. And a lot of times it may be family
Hmm.
run businesses. It's not that um, it was any one thing that led to where they were at. It just,
Hmm.
they need additional help because of the size that they are. They're a lot of these
Hmm.
family businesses grow to the size where they need a financial CFO looking at how they're going to continue to grow and what they're going to
Yeah.
do differently. And a CFO, like I think of a
Hmm.
very good example in Minnesota, Life Touch. They do all the pictures for high school kids on campus everywhere. Well, when COVID hit,
Hmm.
I mean, they brought a CFO in really to help them look at how do we look at what our product is and continue to survive through not being in
Hmm.
person, which was something so key for that group. If they would have waited a year or two, they would have been in a very different position.
Hmm. Hmm. And Mary, so in your experience, what is the kind of um, um, expertise that is needed for cash services? So you are right in terms of getting the right people, but then what do you look at is maybe top three skill sets when you look at the cash team?
For me, I think it goes into communication skills is like key. Sorry, I had to think a minute. You said top
Okay.
three, so I was going to say communication
Yeah.
and advisory.
Hmm.
I don't know with
Hmm.
AI where things will be. We all talk about AI so much. I was telling myself I'm not going to use AI this week, talking about the future,
Hmm.
but we have to. And I think with AI, those technical skills, years ago when I worked at Becker, it was all about technical. Everything was about
Hmm.
an accounting student's technical ability. And so much
Hmm.
now, I think, will be communication, problem solving,
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
being able to go in and critically look at things and do problem solving, because that's where the advisory things come in.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and that's crucial to me.
Hmm. Yeah. And so you talked about that, coming back to our question of how do the positioning, we crack on the positioning. So you said that you look at who are your existing clients and, how you are serving them better. That can become a repeatable model for them. Uh, how do you communicate your value proposition, when you are going out in a market? Because one is that you have grown through the client referrals and word of mouth and stuff like that. Now you are taking on the second step of kind of a scaling or growing, so where messaging comes into a play, right? So how do you look at designing those value propositions?
Yeah, I think I think the key value propositions in that advisory with whatever you're doing is how will you increase the growth
Hmm.
and the opportunity for your client, right? So when you're looking at what you bring to the table, it's taking your people
Hmm.
and their skill set and what they can do. And maybe if you're brand new in advisory, it's different than if you've been doing it a little while, but it's really looking at outcomes, right? Using us will deliver this outcome. I think that's the key in value proposition is people want to understand, how will you help me? So at the end of the day, Manoj, if I
Hmm.
say yes, you're going to do my client advisory services, how will that benefit me? And for a lot of people, it's
Hmm.
just taking time. We'll take and alleviate the time. You don't have to worry about hiring a payroll person or whatever those things are. I think the value proposition is I can come in and help your business
Hmm.
be more productive
Hmm.
and take things more off
Hmm.
your plate. Who do we know? Like I would ask people in a big room, raise your hand if tomorrow somebody walked in and actually showed you how they could give you
Hmm.
15 hours of your week back, and that was enough,
Hmm.
that would actually drive more bottom line revenue into your pocket just by doing these things and making sure they were done in a way that I don't want to have to do. Time is, I think, such a huge value prop for everyone, and helping them get to that next level, right? If they look at wherever their business is,
Hmm.
their next step of growth. But you don't know
Hmm.
any of that with the client until you understand. At Whitman, we always say your goals are impact.
Hmm.
You got to understand your
Okay.
client goals. So back to the communication when you're out in the
Hmm.
marketplace, what's your
Hmm.
goal? Where do you see your
Hmm.
brewery in 5 years from now? Questions
Hmm.
we may not ask if we're doing somebody's taxes. If you could, I think back to my days when I was in college admissions, and one of the questions I loved asking students was, if you could just close your eyes and wait, and you
Hmm.
open them and you're where you want to be, like, what does that look like to you? Or a university
Hmm.
professor. When you ask somebody that,
Hmm.
they'll tell you what they want. So I think that is really important, as well as that your value
Hmm.
selling, going into like what's the value proposition. You're also in that mindset of you're bringing value by understanding what value is to the person.
Hmm. So in a way, what you're saying is that clients don't buy advisory services, right? What they buy is outcomes.
Yeah. Don't you think?
Yeah.
And people.
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
mean,
Yeah. Of course.
yeah, if you think differently, I think they buy people, the person that's out there, right? The firm, the
Hmm.
reputation, the person that they
Hmm.
like. But at the end of the day,
Hmm.
whatever we buy, we want to see the outcome in whatever it is. When you get something, you want to see that it delivers that for you.
Yeah. Hmm. Okay. So Mary, once the offering is defined and the next step comes to kind of a GTM, so go to market strategy, right? So if you are kind of a building and growing and scaling, and then you have defined the messages, so how do you go about having your marketing strategies or maybe go to market strategies? So is there any thoughts around this, how firms can take this up?
Yeah. First thought is, before you hire a business development person, understand what your product
Hmm.
is and who your ideal client profile is, right? So
Hmm.
if you're hiring somebody that is a
Hmm.
former, they were an accountant, they worked in finance, they may have a better breadth of knowledge, but I've seen a lot of people come in to business development roles in accounting firms that maybe don't have that background. And so it's really important
Hmm.
that you understand that that's part of your go to market strategy, is whoever is selling the
Hmm.
product for you, can clearly define it, right? It's not going out and saying, hey, we want to do your taxes for you. It's different.
Hmm.
So, and then with
Hmm.
that, understanding who their ICP is going to be, and how you're going to incorporate that person. Or is it going to be your current team? Is it going to be
Hmm.
the partner that's in the CAS department that's going to be a rainmaker for you with your go to market
Hmm.
strategy, what the niche is? And then, once you're building that and planning it out, I always say with go to market strategies, it's important to be very nimble. And so you start working at it and somebody identifies,
Hmm.
hey, we need to make this change, that is a living, growing document, that strategy, that go to market, because it never really, you're always looking for new clients in CAS, right? Like you've always got the ability to go out and do that.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
and having somebody own it, not just everybody at the firm's going to bring people in. I know a lot of firms, a big part of their go to market strategy is offering a percentage of what that client comes in,
Hmm.
for a year.
Hmm.
If it's 5%, 10% of their yearly billables. I've heard some firms do it for 2 years, and anybody in the firm has the opportunity to add additional revenue to their bottom line by referring people in. I think that's one thing with this, that I've sold a lot of, educational software, different things. This is very much a relationship building
Hmm.
client. I feel referral. That was the word I wanted to use. You will always
Hmm.
win when you're working referrals in the CAS area, where you're constantly working with your current clients, always asking people that you're with, bankers, attorneys. They all know someone who probably could use your services, to make sure that you're working that as a part of your go to market strategy. I just did a case study for a firm
Hmm.
that I worked on with their
Hmm.
building their CAS practice. And one of the
Hmm.
things that we outlined right away was referral, like a referral strategy. A lot of
Hmm.
people will put outbound emailing, a lot of those things into it. I think one of the key things that will win is the referral strategy, networking events, places where you're meeting these clients and they have an opportunity to get to know who you are.
Hmm. 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 And Mary, talking about the GTM means would also, look at the different pricing models. So, what are the different pricing models that exist here?
The model that I see where it's very successful is a subscription type model, that based upon
Okay.
the types of services that you're getting is what the
Hmm.
revenue would be. So whatever that price point be, and I think that's where you really have to determine the people that you have in the
Hmm.
department that are doing the work, making sure that the margins are right with, you know,
Hmm.
um, the money that you're getting, to make sure that it really, like, looking at the scope of work so that you don't undersell
Hmm.
yourself on one of those subscriptions. I think as well, when you go into
Hmm.
that and you have contracts put together with your subscriptions, that you make note of that and let them know, hey, this is the price that we're coming in at, but we'll review this, right, quarterly, and take a look at it, and make sure that this is the right area that you're in. But then in those different categories, you can look at what that CAS deliverable is, right? If you're putting CFSO services in that, that will be a higher dollar amount on that
Hmm.
subscription. But and then some of
Hmm.
that, it will be regional. Not some of A lot of it will be regional based on what you're getting in that area, and then some of it won't. There are a lot of CAS departments that work globally. They work with anyone. They work with clients everywhere. So I would
Hmm.
say, do your research. If you can, find out what other
Yeah.
groups charge. There's things you can find out there
Hmm.
online. Find out, what maybe the guy
Hmm.
down the street is doing for his. And know that you can change it,
Hmm.
right? Pricing, because you look at a new thing. Um, Once you get into it, you can't, a month and a half down the line, say, hey, look, we need to look at this, or 6 months, review it. But you have to come up with a starting point. I think the subscription model is
Hmm.
really liked by the clients as well, right? It's a set monthly fee that they're paying, and they understand what the things they're going to get for that.
And yeah, so that I think that's a valid point. And once you start kind of a scaling, I've seen many people struggle after that, because the first is getting the client, and then suppose if your messaging goes right, then afterwards it comes all about the alignment in operations. So whether it is people, process, technology, HR, how do you coordinate really, to take this up? So how do you then kind of a scale and those platforms without really losing the direction?
Right. So I think as you're growing to scale, you want to make sure that you're setting up regular priority meetings around that and what your bench needs to look
Hmm.
like. If you are not
Hmm.
hiring, and I don't recommend you hire all these people right away, you don't need to go out and
Hmm.
hire somebody that has a CFO, because you need to find clients, right, to build
Hmm.
bench for them as well. And maybe that'll never be a part of your
Hmm.
strategy. Maybe you'll always use out. You'll do something different with that. But as you're bringing clients in, so I'm working with a firm right now. They want to offer CFO services. We white label CFO services through Whitman, so that's something that we do. So we are meeting on a every other
Hmm.
week cadence with their business development person, and as she's meeting with
Okay.
new clients and looking at new
Hmm.
opportunities, we will then be able to bring somebody
Hmm.
on at that CFO level within a week or two, right? But they're doing other
Hmm.
advisory services, the bookkeeping, the other things that they can do. And then we also can look at offshoring as an option for them, right, as they
Hmm.
continue to build. But the key to it is knowing what's coming in your pipeline, right? So solid pipeline management of what your targets are,
Hmm.
who you've got moved into, and then what those deliverables are for all of them. And if you've got a plan, I will tell you right now, outside of Whitman, there are so many
Hmm.
groups out there, your group, groups that support accounting firms so that you don't have to go out and hire 15 people or 10
Hmm.
people. Um, you can
Hmm.
really look at what you want to deliver and then work with them. And really good groups that are out there, that are very
Hmm.
trusted in this area that can come in and help you with that as well. And I know there
Hmm.
are management systems. I don't want to speak to the technology. That's not as much in my wheelhouse as it is like Deborah and some of the other people that
Hmm.
are in this space. But I think there's also the technology and the software that helps you manage that and look at it all so that you can, I think as long as you can continue to look 3 weeks to 4 weeks out, a month out,
Hmm.
you can
Hmm.
understand how your where your growth is coming, and then how you have to
Hmm.
pivot to staff and execute.
Hmm. 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 And you see a lot of these firms use global staffing for their cash practices.
I think in the payroll and in even saying that we're going to take people from tax and move them into this area, and there's a specific amount of audits we could do enough number of returns offshore. Yeah, I do. I think in today's market right now, as an independent firm, especially to
Hmm.
stay
Hmm.
relevant and to be able to staff the way you want to, looking at those ways of doing things. Sometimes I hear people in the Midwest, I hear a lot of firms that are still not doing global staffing, offshoring, outsourcing. There's a lot of different words, but they're thinking about it. They
Hmm.
have to right now.
Hmm.
Really think
Hmm.
about
Hmm.
how do they continue to scale and grow and remain
Hmm.
independent, if that's a
Hmm.
key. Or I always say, take out of your mind of maybe being independent. Not that I push every firm to M&A, but if you're always thinking that I want my firm to be M&A ready, you're building the best firm you possibly could,
Hmm.
right? And so things like
Yeah.
outsourcing and other things you have to look at so that you can stay relevant and remain competitive with the other firms that are out there.
Yeah. So, Mary, we are coming to the end of the session. So, but the one last session is about this is for the firms who are kind of starting to offer the cash practice, and you have a lot of experience, so that they just don't go wrong. What do you would advise that how do they create the blueprint for the CAS practice, and how do they go about launching this?
Yeah, I think if they haven't, if it's all brand new to them, there are so many amazing people that are in this space that can help with that. So if your firm's not a part of an alliance, I would reach out to one of the consulting groups and ask if they have someone there that has done this, that can walk alongside of you until you get things up and running. Just for sure, the strategy part of it. There are people that have done this. The other thing I would recommend is get into local networking groups. If that's not where you're at, you don't know that the additional investment is looking at somebody to come in and help you build it out. We meet
Hmm.
regularly in Minneapolis. I try to meet with different CAS group leaders. They
Hmm.
are so willing to share with each other. What I love about accounting, I say this
Hmm.
all the time, in this industry, while everybody has competitors, the willingness to help each other is just so strong. So I would also say, talk
Hmm.
to some other people, find a firm that is doing advisory and doing it well, and schedule time with their practice
Hmm.
manager, whoever's doing that. Ask them a few questions. What would they do differently? Especially if they're in your market and you can do that. Because I think it's just important to think about it, right? To not just jump into it without, because what I do hear a lot of people say is a couple years into it, if I would have thought about this, I would have done this differently. Not that they can't pivot and do it, but it would have saved a lot of
Hmm.
heartache. So save yourself a
Hmm.
little heartache or a lot. Talk to some people. Ask people who are excelling, and so you can understand their staffing model and what that looks like as well.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that was great. So thank you, Mary. It was a fantastic conversation. I think I mean the people who are kind of a starting cash practice, they would get a valuable piece of nugget from this podcast. And we talked about everything, right from kind of a designing the cash practice to how do you really get the segments right, how do you go to create a go to market strategy, how do you use offshore global staffing, outsource, whatever you say, to kind of get an efficient model out there to support the cash. So I think it was just absolutely a fantastic conversation. So thank you for being here with us on a Smart Outsourcing Talks, and we'll have more such opportunities in the future to collaborate together.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm sorry that I'll miss you at Bridging the
Yes.
Gap. Have an amazing time at the conference, and I look forward to talking to you again.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm sure there are a few more conferences coming, so we'll catch up for sure.
Sounds good.
All right. Bye bye. Thank you so much.